All right, so this should be a review of Algebra 1, or excuse me, well, a little bit of Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and if you took trig, it's really a lot of review the next couple of days. You really need to do this. I'm giving you time in class because this unit is very hard. I feel like this is the hardest unit we will do. And if you have a good background in your Algebra 2 stuff, then it's much easier. So you just really have to focus on getting this done. So today's assignment is going to be, so if I look at this, if I had 2 plus 3 over 2 plus 5, I hate even writing this. I can't do this because that's not correct, because 2 plus 3 is 5 and 2 plus 5 is 7, and you can't cancel if it's an adding sign. So I truly want to erase this because if you notice, none of these have adding signs. Like this is a multiplying between here. Okay, these have adding signs too, so we're gonna have to factor. So we gotta turn them into factored multiplication questions. If I have 2 times 3 over 2 times 5, right, isn't that 6/10? Which reduces to 3/5. Well, if I look at that, could I have canceled these since they're the same on the top? And then I would have also had 3/5. Okay, so that's what we're gonna look at on here. The only way you can cancel things from the top to the bottom is if they're exactly the same. Those are exactly the same, which leaves me with 3y over y squared minus 9. Okay? Now, a lot of kids are like, oh, but Miss Williams, you can be like, and I don't want to draw this, but woo, those y's cancel. No, you can't, because it's not a y in the denominator. It's a y squared minus 9. It's kind of like what I did in the first example where I'm like, you can't do that. Okay, now on some of your homework, I'm just going to go over this on a couple. It's also going to ask you what values are excluded. And so you would have to factor first. So basically, y can't equal 3 or negative 3. And that's why this chapter is going to get difficult, is because we're actually going to graph these. All right? So on the next one, you can't just be like, woo, p squareds cancel, because those aren't p squareds. That's this entire thing. The only way you cancel that is if you have the exact same thing in the denominator. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say, okay, well, this is p plus 3 and p minus 1. That's why we've been practicing factoring. And the denominator factors of 15 that subtract to negative 2, p minus 5, and p plus 3. Now that I have that, these are exactly the same. Okay, and so my final answer is p minus 1 over p minus 5. Do not cancel the p's. They can't cancel because it's not just a p, it's a p minus 1. And so that is your answer. Okay, if they asked for excluded values, you have to look from the original problem. And so that would be these factors. So my excluded values would be p can't equal 5 and p can't equal a negative 3. Okay, we're not going to do excluded values always. I'm just going to kind of talk about that now because we're going to have them for graphing. All right, so on the next one, you cannot cancel anything because they're not exactly the same. But on the top, I can take out an a to the 4th. That leaves me with a b minus 2. And on the bottom, I can take out an a cubed, and that leaves me with a 2 minus b. Now, these are out in front, and so you can cancel them because it's like the 2 up above here that we canceled. Okay, that's being multiplied, so you can cancel, and that would cancel to an a because you'd have 4 and 3, so that would be an a to the 1st. This is where this gets a little complicated. Okay, so if you have b minus 2, like let's put 8 in there. Wouldn't 8 minus 2 be 6? And wouldn't 2 minus 8 be a negative 6? And so isn't that answer a negative 1? And I could keep going all day long. Like I could put 100 in. That would be 98 divided by a negative 98. So basically, these are not, I'm going to use like a pink. These are not the same, but they're exact opposites, so they cancel to a negative 1. So my answer on this is like a negative a or a negative 1a. Okay? All right, on the next one, you can multiply and then simplify, or simplify and then multiply. If you are sloppy, I would definitely just multiply straight across. I'm going to do it this way first. 56xy squared over, I need to get out my calculator. 21 times 16 is 336 x cubed, y cubed. And it doesn't matter the order you write those, I just go alphabetical. So let's see, does 56 go into 336? Yeah, 6 times. So wouldn't this reduce to 1/6? And then you have 2 x's left in the denominator, because the bigger one's in the denominator, and 1 y. So my answer would be this. Okay, so what I did is I multiplied and then I simplified. Now, if you are an organized person, you can actually simplify, because doesn't this divide to 2, because it's all multiplying, and doesn't this divide by 3? So then don't I get 1/6? And then if I look at my y's, y squared cancels with 2 of those, so that leaves me with a y. And then if I look at my x's, I have 1 x canceling with 1 of those, and that's x squared. So I get the same answer. The problem is, look at all those x marks. Some of you are super sloppy, and you're going to cross something out that you shouldn't have, and then you're going to have a big mess, and you're going to lose it. So if you're an organized person, doing what I just did is easy. If you're not, I would probably do it the purple way. Multiply and then simplify. Okay, if you look at the next example, it is a division sign. So you're doing 10mk squared over 3c squared d times 6c squared d squared over 5m to the 5th. Okay, so from there, I'm going to multiply. So I get 60 mk squared c squared d squared over 15, I'm going to write it in the same order, m to the 5th, there's no k, c squared d. So 15 goes into 60 4 times. You have an m on the top and 5 on the bottom, so that's 4 on the bottom. Your c squareds actually just cancel. Anything divided by itself is gone. And then you have a d left on the top because it's a d squared divided by a d, so you get this. Okay, I think I could have canceled. So if I look at my numbers, 3 goes into 6 twice, 5 goes into 10 twice. So I do 2 times 2 and I get 4 on the top. And then if I do my m's, 1m cancels with one of those and leaves me with a 4, so m to the 4th on the bottom. My c squareds cancel. And then finally my d, I have a d on the bottom and 1 on the top, so that leaves me with a d on the top. So I get the same answer by canceling and then multiplying, but that's sloppy. So you've got to be good with organization to be able to do it the way that I just showed. Okay? So if I look at the next one, you cannot do this problem until you factor. So I think I have k minus 3 on the top and then k plus 1 on the bottom. On the top, I'd have 1 minus k and 1 plus k. And then on the bottom, factors of 3 that go to -4, isn't that k minus 3 and k minus 1? Okay, I'm going to use yellow. What is exactly the same? K minus 3 are exactly the same. There's actually another one that's exactly the same. Look at the k plus 1s. If I do 1 plus 7, I get 8. If I do 7 plus 1, I get 8. I still, no matter what I do, it doesn't matter how you add, those are the same. But these ones are exact opposite. If I do 1 minus 7, I get -6. If I do 7 minus 1, I get a +6. So that would divide to -1. So when they're exact opposites, they would divide. Just plug a number in and see. Okay, so on the next one, I'm going to do 2 things at once. I'm going to factor and then I'm going to also flip, if that's okay, because it's a divide sign. So if I factor, this is d plus 3, and this is d plus 2, d minus 1. And now I'm going to flip, so this is d plus 2, d plus 1, and then d plus 3. So I'm going to use my yellow highlighter to highlight the ones that are the same. I've got a d plus 3 and a d plus 2. Now, let's put a number in. If I put 7 in, 7 plus 1 is 8. 7 minus 1 is 6. Are those the same, just with a different sign? They are not. So your final answer is d times d plus 1 over d minus 1. That is your answer. Now, in calculus, there's reasons why you would multiply in. And so I would accept that as an answer if you multiplied the top in. It doesn't matter to me, okay? But just know that in our class, it's going to be okay to leave it in factored form. Okay, so I'm going to have you pause, and I'm going to have you work 8. Pause and try it on your own, please. Okay, so I'd have x minus 3 over x plus 2 times, what is that, x plus 2 and x plus 3. And then x minus 3 and x plus 3. So I'm going to highlight in yellow the ones that are exactly the same. Those cancel to 1, those cancel to 1, those cancel to 1. So you have like 10 divided by 10. You have the same thing on the top as you do on the bottom, and when you divide anything by itself, don't you get 1? The answer to this is not 0. The answer to this is 1. All right, so I would like you to try example 9. Try it on your own, do it, try it, and then we'll work through it. Okay, you have to factor first. So 3, take out a 3, and on the bottom that's d plus 3 and d plus 1. It's a divide, so I'm going to flip d plus 4 and d plus 1, and then on the bottom is d plus 2. So I'm going to highlight everything that's the same. So my answer is 3 parentheses d plus 4 over d plus 2. If you multiplied that 3 in, 3d plus 12 over d plus 2, I would take that as an answer, but you do not have to. Okay? All right, on the last one here, this divide sign is the same as this divide sign. So this problem, I'm gonna factor and flip. So wouldn't you have x squared over 3x minus 4y? No, that's a 2. 3x plus 2y, because that's difference of squares. And then I'm going to multiply by 2y minus 3x over x cubed. So these are multiplied, and so I know I'm going to have an answer with an x on the bottom. Okay? Now, if I look at this, are these exactly the same, just in a flipped? Because like if I put a number like, if I made x1 and y3, so wouldn't that be 6 minus 3 for this first one? 6, because you do 2 times 3, and then, yep, 6 minus 3 is 3. And if I put it in the other one, you would have 3 minus 6, which is a negative 3. So those are exact opposites. So that means you're going to have a negative 1, but you still have the 3x plus 2y in the denominator. Okay, so if you multiplied that in, you would have 3x squared plus 2xy. I would take that as an answer too. Okay, so you're factoring and reducing. You've done this in past math classes. Okay, so your assignment is the delta math that goes with this.